Hello guys, and today we have an extremely interesting topic for our conversation. We will begin with the analysis of problems inside the Russian Federation caused by the Ukrainian drone sanctions, and this will logically bring us to the gasoline crisis. Long queues, people have to stand hours to get some gas. And this naturally brings us to the history of the USSR, especially the years before its collapse, when people had to spend hours, if not days, in queues. And if you allow me, I will share some of my early childhood memories, which are also Soviet memories. And I do remember how we spent hours in lines with my mom, talking about everything, feeling really cold if it's in winter, and trying to get something basic like butter. People spend hours, days, send their children, grandparents to stand in these lines. People got acquainted, gave birth, and literally died in these queues. And they are a symptom of the economic mismanagement and serious problems with the supply and demand. This exactly resembles the USSR. Putin wanted to recreate the USSR, so to some extent he succeeded, but he recreated this monster in the shape just before its collapse. So let's talk about gasoline prices, long queues in Russia, and what it tells us about the potential collapse of the Russian Federation. My name is Anna. You know, this is the channel where we talk a little bit longer about different things, and subscribe. Make our community stronger, and please share these videos to spread the truth. Many people still do not see the reality of Russia, of Ukraine, of Moldova. And sometimes I feel like a translator from this part of the world into the language of the democratic countries which never experienced what life in the USSR was. So let's begin with this modern period, which is extremely pessimistic now inside Russia. The numbers, the prices are so obvious that even Donald Trump started talking about problems inside Russia. Because Ukrainian drone sanctions turned out to be very effective, we destroyed more than 24% of their oil refining capacities. They had to ban exports of diesel and many other things they tried to do to save the situation. Gasoline crisis is only growing stronger and more visible. And if they don't write about it in newspapers, they don't speak much on the news, they focus on other things, on threatening the world. But these queues of people, of cars that are trying to get some petrol are impossible to hide. And every day on X, in Telegram, you can find dozens, actually thousands of videos made in Russia with classical Russian bad language comments. And people are driving past these queues of cars, and they can drive for half an hour and it does not stop. So we may say these are many kilometer long queues just to get some petrol. Already there are regions left without any. And first of all, we are talking about this temporarily occupied by Russia territories like Crimea, like Donetsk and Luhansk. People who have to leave there report they don't have any gasoline left at all. But this problem expanded, and now there are dozens of regions inside Russia that suffer from the shortages of different kinds of gas. We're not talking about something posh, something exquisite. We're talking about basic petrol like A95. I don't know if you have the analog in your countries. And people are talking about that. People are trying to understand what is happening, because Russia is known for access of petrol, gas, oil. They are a mafia gas station country. They survived for decades selling oil products, selling petrol, and now they don't have enough for their internal needs. What is interesting, that it's a classical Russian tradition preserved in the Russian Empire, in the Soviet Union, now in the Russian Federation, to hide the truth from the people. This censorship, it's present everywhere, and they don't talk about the success of Ukrainian drones sanctions. You can easily find videos, but local authorities comment that these are debris, this is a minor problem, and you won't read a lot about how many Russian oil refineries are not operating anymore, and there are dozens. I'm not talking about damaged. I'm not talking about the ones that experienced minor attacks. I'm talking about dozens non-operating, same as pipelines, ports, and I constantly report about that on the main channel, Anna from Ukraine. If you're new to it, do check and subscribe for daily updates. So, of course, those Russians who live close to oil refineries, close to oil pipelines, they know the truth. Those who follow the updates, they know the truth. But the majority of Russians are super indifferent. They classically describe themselves as apolitical, and they know nothing. And they keep asking questions. What's wrong? What's happening? What's the problem? And these cues, these problems that they experience when they try to fuel a car, to get to work, to get to school, and so on, this is the message they receive. This is the first symptom. They come to analyze that, oh my God, not just the Blitzkrieg failed, but the whole Russian Federation is failing and sums up for that. So we may say that more than 20 different, located in different parts of the Russian Federation regions, experience serious shortages of gasoline. What makes it more interesting, similar to air raid alert maps that we have here in Ukraine, they now have fuel shortages maps in Russia. So people can check where there is at least some gasoline available in their region, and they travel there. They can travel hours to get some fuel, but the moment they reach, for example, the gas station, it's gone. So they literally have this hunting process to get some gasoline in a country that was previously described as a gas station, that has the excess, I hope I'm pronouncing the word right because I have doubts now, of fuel. I mean, a lot, more than they need. They exported it, and now they banned the export. It's serious, people. It's not something minor. Never ignore such messages, especially if they are supported by many kilometer-long queues in dozens of the Russian regions. In Siberia, in Rostov, in the south of Russia, in the Urals, everywhere, in the Far East. And people actually started stealing gas from each other's cars during nights. Can you imagine that? I can easily imagine that. That's a very, very typical approach for the traumatized post-communist society. Subscribe to know more truths from this part of the world, and I hope you won't get bored with some of my memories. Because when I think about this early childhood, I mean preschool years, because I went to school already in the independent Ukraine, and I'm super happy about that. But I was born in 1984, and you know that 80s are these years of really long queues in all Soviet republics. It was a part of culture, it was a part of reality, and it was unavoidable. It's just like you don't have a choice. It's just like, I don't know, sleeping at night. To get anything, you had to spend hours in a queue. And we're not talking about Black Friday. We're not talking about something exquisite, I don't know, a super new iPhone. We're talking about bread and butter. So one of my favorite memories that like depict the period very well is me standing with my mom in a queue. I don't know why, but it was not inside the shop, it was outside the shop. Well, first of all, because the queue was really long, but we were trying to get these things from the backyard of the shop, not from the front yard. It was winter, way more snow. like in the 80s. That's true. The weather is changing. And I was wearing this fur coat. Like, if you are a Soviet child, all of you have similar brownish or grayish fur coats. I had one. Let me know, would you like more stories like that? Because I feel like there's so many things, interesting things to share. They are personal and they beautifully describe the era. But sometimes I feel it's a little bit off topic. So let me know, are there any questions, like, I mean, about childhood, some memories that you'd like me to share? And if it's not, if no, that's totally okay too. You know, that's a real dialogue here, no offense. So, and like my mom was wearing a fur hat. Yes, she had one. And we were standing and I was holding her hand. I was playing with coins. I liked playing with coins. And I was just like standing hours. And we would go around the shop. For example, what you do, you ask a person in front of you that we will be back, please keep our place. And they see that you're with a child. So you take a round, you walk around the shop, not to freeze. And then we bought 2 packs of butter, like the one that bread and butter, nothing special. And we were super happy. My mom was satisfied. We got 2. And I actually think that might be a reason why I was with her in a queue, because they give 1 pack in one hand. And I had another pair of hands, even if they are 4-year-old. Just imagine that reality. It was very common for all family to stand in a queue if you wanted to get 5 packs. This could be about bread. This could be about kilos of sugar. It's not about caviar. It's not about veal. I don't know. It's not about olive oil or bananas. It's about butter. It's about sugar. And people say it was good to live in the USSR. And another very interesting story that you can see in lots of Soviet movies, many of your grandparents can share, and parents actually, it was not uncommon that you go back home from work and you see a long queue of people, and you simply stand in that queue. You join the queue and you stand. You don't know what will you buy. Just like you realize that if there are so many people standing in line, then perhaps it's something good, or you don't have anything and you're literally interested in everything. So you stand in that queue, literally not knowing what they are selling. Also, standing in a queue does not mean you succeed. It doesn't mean that you will get what you want. Once again, you may spend 3-4 hours, and then in front of you, the butter will end. And they will say, thank you, come next week, not tomorrow. There is no guarantee at all. People who were on pension, retired, they would come at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock in the morning to be the first ones. But once again, this does not guarantee they will have products on that day in a shop. In a shop, they could have, in a grocery shop, they could have 1 product or 2 products, not 100. And that's insane. And I do remember that when you enter a shop, there are lots of empty shelves. And then there is 1 shelf on which you have like 1,000 of 1 product, like 100 packs of butter. And then 100 people will buy it in 1 hour. Another thing is when you stand in a queue, for example, for some clothes or some makeup products, let's take a mascara. You don't have a choice what you get when you reach the shop assistant. So you are standing in a queue to get some mascara that was brought to a shop, and they give you a mascara and you don't choose if it's black, green, blue. You don't have a choice. You get one and you're happy because maybe 2 people after you, and then they won't have any mascara left. What people did later, after they bought it, they could stand near the queue and exchange it. For example, I want green one, you have green one, I have black, we exchange. Or I could sell my a little bit higher if you didn't manage to get and I'm just like trying to build my business, but that's pathetic, and that is where corruption grew from. Shop assistants at the end of the USSR sometimes were very rich people because they knew how to hide some products and sell them to people they wanted for a higher price. That's why I say that Russia, the USSR, the Kremlin ideas, all of that is the mother of corruption that so many Eastern European countries suffer from. Yes, and in Russia they return back to that right now. Queues are not fun. It's interesting when you're standing for something special or, I don't know, in a Louvre museum, and if it's once in 2-3 years. But if you burn 3 hours of your life every day after a hard working day, standing outside a shop in a freezing wind, waiting for some food, you feel humiliated, you feel miserable. And that is the answer how millions of Russians actually feel now. And people, such queues are not a sign of sales, not a Black Friday, not a Christmas presents period. That is a sign of the success of the Ukrainian drone sanctions, of the economic mismanagement inside the Russian Federation. It demonstrates they overestimated their powers. They keep failing and they cannot provide people with the basic things like gas. Imagine something similar happening in your countries, in your states. This would be all over your TV. All the journalists would ask your presidents and prime ministers about that. But in Russia, they only film the queues, they laugh, they say it greatly resembles the USSR, and I hope they satisfy their nostalgia, because, you know, there is a certain kind of people in Russia, in some former Soviet republics, that can be described as Homo Sovieticus. Let me know in the comments below, how would you define this person, and would you like a video on that? Because here in Ukraine you can often come across such phrase, oh, that's Homo Sovieticus. People who feel nostalgic about these times without understanding the background, the consequences. Very often they substitute the feeling of their youth, prime years, and the period they lived in. But nobody enjoyed queues, and nobody enjoys them now in Russia. And that is something even Russian propagandists, even the Kremlin cannot hide. Kilometer-long queues, 50% higher prices on gas, ordinary gas that the country once described as a gas station run by mafia cannot afford to the population that so much wanted this war but somehow does not enjoy it anymore, especially when it returned back to dozens of Russian regions. We keep working because the only way to end this war is to defeat and demilitarize Russia, and you know, it's not easy, but it's the truth. Please share these videos and subscribe to my other social media channels, the links to which you will find in the description of this video, same as the link to our merch shop. Thank you so much for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of these channels. Now we have 2. This is a great honor and gives me more opportunity to speak to you and to tell you some interesting facts and share some very personal memories from this very under-investigated part of the world. And I'm very grateful that that you want to know more, that you want to know the truth. Thank you so much for being friends. Slava Ukraini!